You're listening to Autumn on the Air, the weekly podcast that brings you conversations about the impact of research commercialization and the people who make it happen. Join us for interviews with patent and licensing professionals, innovators, entrepreneurs, and tech transfer leaders on the issues and trends that matter most. Keep listening for an inside track on the people, IP policies, and politics changing our world.
Welcome to Autumn on the Air. Today we're discussing a trend reshaping the landscape of university innovation, the rise of the University Chief Innovation Officer. This role, familiar in the corporate world, is now gaining traction across universities as institutions centralize their efforts around innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic impact. Universities like MIT, Penn State, and Tulane are among those adding chief innovation officers to their leadership teams to streamline activities across departments and drive growth both on campus and within their communities. We're joined today by Kimberly Gramm, Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer at Tulane University. Kimberly joined Tulane University in July 2022 to lead the Innovation Institute, which was recently awarded the 2024 Global Consortium of Entrepreneurship Centers Outstanding Emerging Entrepreneur Center. Kimberly's primary focus is to build Tulane University's innovation and entrepreneurial pipeline and increase regional capacity for new venture creation. Kimberly has over 16 years of early-stage technology venture development experience. More than 309 startups have been created in university environments under her management, and those startups have raised more than $470 million in investment capital. She's also been awarded more than $12 million in federal and economic development grants for research and commercialization funding in support of innovators and entrepreneurs. Recently, she is part of a team awarded $160 million for a National Science Foundation grant called Fuel to support energy transformation. Kimberly has also founded two university accelerators, FAU Tech Runway and Texas Tech University Accelerator. She is the co-founder of an Innovation District 501c3, Texas Tech Research Park, Inc., and is currently serving as a co-chair in the NSF Fuel Translation of Innovation to Practice/Technology Commercialization. Also joining us today is Glenn Gardner, president of Gardner Innovation Search Partners, whose recent article, The Rise of the University Chief Innovation Officer, examines this trend. Glenn has over 24 years of recruiting experience focusing on finding the perfect leadership fit for innovation-driven organizations. When Glenn isn't matching top talent with teams, he's likely on a mountain bike trail or ski slope, embracing adventure as he does in his professional life. Welcome to the podcast, Kimberly and Glenn.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you both for being here today. And we have a really interesting topic that we're going to talk about, and that's this growing trend of universities appointing chief innovation officers. So, Kim, I wanted to start with you and ask you, could you tell us what initially sparked this shift within academia?
So I think there's a number of things. First, increasing competition within universities for the best students, for funding, for faculty talent. I think this has spurred a focus on innovation so that we create unique opportunities and partnerships that differentiate the institutions in a global education market. I think there's a huge demand for real-world impact. So students, faculty, government, and industries are expecting universities to contribute more directly to societal challenges and more so even economic development efforts across cities in the nation. And so I think all of that is really bridging academic research and practical application, and so fostering entrepreneurship, commercialization efforts through taking inventions and creating innovations, and then developing startups or really working with partners to make sure that we are solving those real world problems, I think is become increasingly more important. interdisciplinary collaboration. Many of today's challenges, such as climate change or healthcare innovation, things like that, require interdisciplinary approaches. So I think these roles are looking at how to spearhead initiatives that break down silos and encourage collaboration across departments, and making innovation a university-wide effort. And so you really need someone fostering that and connecting, being the connective tissue, so that it's really driving impact, and it really takes someone nurturing those kinds of relationships. Economic development, I think that's critical. Universities are increasingly seeing themselves as those engines of economic growth. And these roles are ensuring that our resources at the institution are channeled toward supporting startups and incubating ideas. Obviously, we all know that this is where job growth comes from. And so engaging with industry and government for funding and collaborating on these more strategic efforts has become a bigger focus at universities. And they're trying to figure out how to do that in consortiums and using P3s and all kinds of different mechanisms. And so I think that's also been really important. And then I'll say one last thing is maybe even diversifying some revenue streams. I think declining public funding for education and increasing operational costs everywhere, has pushed universities to explore these new revenue streams. And so we're looking at everything from monetizing research to corporate partnerships and developing programs that align with the market demand and how quickly technology is changing our world.
So, Glenn, I'm interested what you've seen regarding this trend as well, given your perspective.
Yeah, and Kimberly answered this much more eloquently than I can. But from the one thing that she said that I want to reiterate is breaking down silos. So, the role of, the innovation game in higher education is one thing, but we're trying to, everybody's got, there seems to be so many silos in academia, and the head may not know what the tail is doing, and the vice provost for research, or maybe the provost or the president, they have their own ideas. So this is one point of contact that really owns this innovation space. And so I just think it's a natural evolution in a very complex world that we're in.
Exactly, very complex. Kim, can you talk about some of the key responsibilities that differentiate a university chief innovation officer from similar roles in a corporate setting?
Yeah, this is a great question. And they are very different. I think, in academia, we focus on advancing research, education, and societal impact. So our goals are often centered on fostering interdisciplinary collaboration, creating these innovative learning experiences, and translating academic research. And so success is measured by longer term outcomes through research commercialization and things like community engagement. In industry, you're really driven by market competitiveness, profit, and shareholder value is, the focus. And then the goals are typically include things like product development and time to market, improving processes and efficiencies. And so they want to stay ahead of all the trends so that they can be successful in generating revenue. Right. And so return on investment is something that they're very much focused on, where universities are really focused on building people, right, and professionals that then can serve within industry as one of their primary goals. There's so much more, honestly, that I can go into, but I see Glenn's ready to jump in there, so maybe we can go back and forth.
Absolutely, go for it, Glenn.
Yeah, and since I mainly recruit in the higher education space, and I do a little bit of recruiting on the industry side, I don't know if I'm the perfect person to ask this question, but as Kimberly said, if you look at what's the mission of academia and academia innovation, the term that keeps coming out nowadays is impact. That would be the first thing that comes out. The second thing that tends to come out is service to faculty to attract and retain the best faculty. That's very different than the almighty dollar and the stock price that comes out of industry.
Absolutely. And Glenn, I want to turn to your article for a second because you mentioned that several universities have appointed these chief innovation officers now. Do you have a sense of what some of the immediate impact has been at these institutions since they've implemented these roles?
And once again, since we brought Kimberly here to this, it would be a much better question for Kimberly. And I was just out at UC Irvine and got to see their whole building, and it was really amazing how big and how complex that their different things were. And I was just at University of Cincinnati and saw their innovation district too. So of the immediate impact, I really don't know, but my guess is from the vice provost for research side, he can now do more of his job that he's focusing on, where the chief innovation officer can focus on more of the broader, more specific innovation issues too. So it's a very divided role, but I think at the end of the day, having that one person just to worry about the innovation ecosystem, as opposed to what your traditional vice provost for research has to worry about, he can worry about his or her things on his side.
Absolutely. So he's not stretched in so many different directions, and you get more of a focused approach on innovation. That makes a lot of sense. Kimberly, I want to go back to you and ask you, how does centralizing innovation, tech transfer, and corporate engagement under a single chief innovation officer benefit universities like Tulane?
Well, first, I think it streamlines decision-making and coordination. I think you get enhanced stakeholder engagement. There's integration of research and commercialization. We're looking at the entire innovation pipeline, which includes, the development of technology through the technology readiness levels to preparing it for an actual product that then eventually gets out into the marketplace. Optimizing resources and really thinking about how, a lot of times in the work that we do, I think about it like a relay race. And so the relay race is won and lost at the exchange. And so, when the baton is handed off to the next runner, that has to be smooth and frictionless. And the better that exchange happens, the more timely ideas become innovations that then can get into the market, but also we can iterate, right? And so not everything that comes from the lab is going to make it out into the market. So thinking about an efficient process for being able to invest in the development of those things, and then being able to develop business models that then can be scalable, I think is important. But we also, it's really about interdisciplinary collaboration. Glenn mentioned a bit of the silos, but research going deep requires a lot of focus. But then when you discover something, then you have to figure out how that becomes implementable and creates value. And that requires that interdisciplinary thinking and coordination. I think one of the big things that I think about is societal needs. I just served as a keynote for the Future of Energy Forum. Tulane, LSU, and really every university in Louisiana has been awarded a National Science Foundation engine called Fuel. And so, we are worried about the energy transition and what that does to our globe. And so asking the questions to the people that are going to receive these technologies and hopefully benefit from them, I think is super important. And then last, and then I'll let Glenn jump in there, is accountability for measuring or understanding what impact can be. Sometimes in early stages, it's hard to measure the nuances in developing and coordinating these efforts, but really coming up with ways to be strategic with our leadership teams at universities, industry, government, to all be able to say we can win together.
Absolutely. Glenn, your thoughts?
Yeah, I have a little bit, I agree with everything Kimberly said, but I have a little different view on this. And this is from the hands on the ground recruiting standpoint, because we've been recruiting in the tech transfer world for over 20 years. And probably about 4 or 5 years ago, we did our first industry engagement search. And since then, we've done several more. And if you just look at the state of the university innovation world, big pharma doesn't want to license a small molecule now and pay $100,000 for it and give you a 4% royalty. What they really would rather do is wait till it gets through phase 2 clinical trials, and they'd rather pay $100 million, the operative word being de-risked. So really, the de-risking is going more towards the universities. But what I've seen a tremendous amount is the tech transfer and corporate engagement offices working more closely together. And we attended our meetings with Tony Boconfuso at UIDP. We just attended our first NACRO meeting. We're now members of NACRO. So we're trying to learn that community and where these communities are getting together. But if you were to look at the maturity level of the corporate engagement compared to the maturity level of the autumn community, it is still, I think the autumn community is more mature, but how we digest these corporate engagement people into this innovation ecosystem is very important too.
Absolutely. Extremely, extremely important. And Kimberly, I want to turn back to you because one of the points Glenn makes in his article is he talks about chief innovation officers creating what he termed a concierge approach to innovation. Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on what that means and how it changes support for tech transfer offices?
Yeah, some people would say football is the front door of a university, and I would say innovation is the front door of a university. And this concierge term is really important because I think that not only are we trying to elevate the role of tech transfer, but we are also trying to elevate the experience that our faculty members and students have with industry. But just like our iPhones have a GUI interface, this concierge process is really about making sure that everybody gets what they need, and we are meeting people at that point. And so it requires a little bit of interpretation and a little bit of needs assessment. But thinking about tech transfer offices, in the traditional sense, they narrowly focus on patents and licensing. So our tech transfer office reports up through our Innovation Institute. And what we're able to do is complement one another, going back to that relay race where we're going back and forth and ensuring that technologies are being developed and creating the feedback loop with industry to understand what they're focused on and what their pain points are, to share that with our faculty to continue to develop those innovations. And I think that really helps to create that seamless, integrated innovation function that breeds success, both on the industry side, but also on the tech transfer side, because you have this maturation of stakeholder engagement, and you're able to speak both languages to come to agreements, hopefully quicker.
Absolutely. Glenn, what do you have to add on this point?
This concierge service, or what I've been hearing for years, is this front door to the university, and where that relationship starts, or how we can make it easy for whoever it is to do business with us. And that's not just industry, right? I have some of my university clients that are taking care of startups for people in their local community. So I really think going back to this, where does the philanthropic group come? Where does the corporate engagement that's focused on research group, who has that relationship with industry, and how can they figure out the problems that industry needs solved in a very easy way?
So, Glenn, I want to stick with you for a second and talk a little bit more about your article, because in it you describe how chief innovation officers bring significant industry networks to their roles. So my question is, how does this impact collaboration and funding opportunities for university-based projects?
Got it. I think one of the big issues that I keep hearing with my clients is, NIH, NSF funding is going down. And so getting industry partnerships is becoming a much more important aspect of the university chief innovation officer. And so I think these industry collaborations and these, these different research collaboration agreements, sponsored research, what I'm finding nowadays, it seems to be more important. And I know I'm taking this to extremes, but licensing seems to be going downhill a little bit, while sponsored research and industry collaboration seem to be going uphill. And then once again, as the industry are getting their needs met and their complex problems solved, that's going to lead to startups. That's going to lead to more licensing, and it's going to lead to much bigger exits in the future too.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Kimberly, do you have some thoughts on this question you want to share?
Yeah, I can give a discrete example. I've led different types of, I'll call them consortiums, where my current university and my former universities, we have been awarded National Science Foundation funding for developing these kinds of relationships and being able to think about use-inspired research. And so currently I am a co-chair of the technology development arm of the energy engine in Louisiana. And so this is a cooperative agreement. Really, it's not a grant from the National Science Foundation, where they gave Louisiana, LSU, and Tulane $160 million, and the state matched another approximately $68 million, with this idea of really trying to understand energy problems and the development of technologies around carbon capture. And so there's a very sophisticated governance model in place in ways that we evaluate what the problem or pain points are in industry and who brings those. We have over 50 partners, so Shell, Exxon, you name it, BASF, they're involved and engaged, and they are coming to us as their sort of outsourced R&D arm. And we manage a process to evaluate which projects will be accepted based on how we're matching those to faculty within the universities in the state of Louisiana who has the expertise and capacity to develop them. And so this idea that we are listening intently and we have a mechanism for funding research that's use-inspired and then developing not only the technology licensing opportunity or university spin-out opportunity, but also workforce development. Because new technologies and new ways of doing things requires a different, or potentially an adjustment in the education given to train people. And so these are very complex organizations with different incentive structures and ways to judge success that we are developing across 50 plus organizations in this particular example. But it makes us more aware of the challenges, and it helps us to build a better student or workforce for being able to lead those kinds of efforts.
Yeah, that's definitely a great example. Thank you for sharing that. And Kimberly, for some of our listeners who might be looking, or universities or institutions that are looking to implement a chief innovation officer role, what types of support and alignment do you believe are critical to help ensure the role's success?
This is my favorite question. I have had the opportunity to work at 3 different universities, so I understand kind of the public university versus the private in different areas of the country. And so the first and foremost, you need strong leadership support, executive backing, cabinet level support is absolutely critical. You have to have explicit and visible support from the top leaders, and they have to be willing to share that in their communications as president, provost, the board of trustees. That really signals to the university community and to the external community how important innovation is. That alignment is critical for a person to succeed. And so I would make sure if I was a new person or being considered that this is a critical factor. Clear mandate and defined metrics. Different leaders have different ideas of what success is, and it doesn't matter what university you're at. A provost can differ from a president, a CFO, or lead general counsel who's going to help you to create the templates that you want to use with industry. They might not be completely aligned. So I think defining metrics is really critical. Everything from tech transfer, entrepreneurship, industry engagement. I mean, everybody wants more startups, but you have to start with, is there a there from the development of the innovation, right? A budget and a skilled team. Some places across the country, it's harder to find the right team. And so you need the right budget in place to be able to recruit if you don't have a lot of innovation ecosystem or entrepreneurial ecosystem already in that environment. I think that integration in the academic units is important. So my role reports to the president and the COO of the university. And how you engage with the academic units, because they're the ones that are teaching and they are the ones that have the academic, the science and research going on within their units. And so how closely you'll work with the deans is really important. So meeting them and talking to them and seeing what their appetite is for innovation is critical to your success. It's where the inventions are coming from. I think having a clear understanding about what external partnerships, I don't know that I asked that question before I came to this role. And I'm finding that I, have to build that engagement, meaningful engagement, not superficial engagement, because a lot of people love Tulane University, but are they doing transactions in meaningful ways with us and wanting to double down on the research we're doing so that we can have more innovation? Things like that, I think, are really, really important to ask. And then what kind of infrastructure do you have at your university for supporting? This is like everything from buildings. Can industry be in buildings with your researchers to the simple things? And those are good questions to ask. And I'll stop there and let Glenn jump in.
Yeah, please, Glenn, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, what Kimberly said is executive buy-in, right? From the president, the provost, the vice provost for research, the deans. Everyone needs to buy into this. And coming from my tech transfer recruiting, since that's what I've been doing, tech transfer, in some places is kind of how do I say the word, redheaded stepchild. If you really look at tech transfer, only less than 10% of the offices operate in the black, and you only have a 3 in 100% chance of a license bringing in money, outside of the big blockbusters. So, but
that's a staggering statistic.
I know. I was thinking the same thing too.
But was my number accurate though? I guess, Kimberly.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be really intentional about the investments that you make, and like we're trying to flip the model and build it, and it's tough, and you have to really have some processes in place for understanding market opportunity and blue ocean ideas. And it just takes a lot of talent to really understand that on the front end. And I think you're probably right. And so people are a little shy about whether this is going to be something that will bring revenue to support the university overall.
And then piggybacking on this, Kimberly, and you probably know this because I was just at Jacob Johnson's InnovaSource meeting, and he told me how your position came about. It was a philanthropic from I don't remember the details, but I was shocked to learn that.
Wow, that is surprising.
It was a philanthropic kind of lead-in that said, and then there was a bunch of matching funds, and then they said, hey, let's go for this. So I thought, I don't know how that happens in other universities, but I thought that was a very interesting story. And I don't know if you wanted to give the 10,000 footer on that, Kimberly, or if you even know the gory details of that.
Yeah. So Tulane University is, they're R1, they're a research powerhouse, but they have not had a focus like this on innovation. And I think our board at Tulane came forward and said, other universities are doing this. We really think that Tulane should be a part of participating in innovation and entrepreneurship. And then, so they did a study, and Jacob Johnson from InnovaSource was the one that helped to conceptualize what would it look like to have a framework that is successful, that could be potentially successful if you put the right puzzle pieces in place, and then you had the funding to give it a runway, like a true startup for startups. What would that look like? And so our board went through that process with our university leadership, and we had a number of major donors step up, and they raised $25 million to initiate building the institute, and then did a search for the inaugural chief innovation officer, and that was me. And they actually, I had to laugh. I didn't know this at the time, but they actually went to my former university, and that was one of the ones that they studied. And so they had all these cases of, what does it look like when you've done this for 20 years or 30 years? What does it look like when you've done it for 5 years? And showed that to the leadership team, and then they knocked on my door and made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So the story goes.
They basically poached you out of where you were, essentially.
Yeah. Well, and I was very interested as a female academic leader in having a title of Chief Innovation and Entrepreneurship Officer, and having that line to the president to be transformative, or think about being transformative in innovation and our community. And so I took the leap, and you're on the receiving end a couple days of that, seeing that award. And that was complete validation that it's possible when there wasn't really a foundation for this kind of work to be able. And it's not to say that people aren't innovative at Tulane. It's just they didn't have the infrastructure, the systems, the framework to do this on a full university scale. And it just really does take an effort, a plan, and a vision to execute on.
So once you got into your role there, you were hired in. What challenges did you face once you started trying to coordinate within the kind of traditional departments there at Tulane?
One of the first challenges that I very much underestimated was the talent to recruit people from leaders to even mid-level managers to support the development of all the things. I have a huge portfolio. And so everything from entrepreneurship education to, I'm going to be building a venture studio. I have a venture fund under my portfolio, the tech transfer function. So all of these elements and this community piece, which looks very different when you're looking at New Orleans versus Boston, for example. And so interpreting what winning looks like in each one of these categories, and then trying to identify the right people with the right talent to really roll up their sleeves and build it. I mean, there was to build it in a way that was best practice was my number one challenge. I think for me personally, moving to a new city that was very different. I came from West Texas to come to New Orleans. It was a shock to the system in terms of how you orient yourself to do this kind of work. The mayor was on my board in West Texas. I was on the board of Governor Abbott for small business and product development. And so Louisiana is very different on how the geopolitical nature. So all of these things are externalities that affect your ability to build a system that is scalable. And those variables change no matter where you are. And you have to synthesize what formula or equation you can be successful at. And you have to be brought up to speed quickly. And so people that are legacy people that can do that and share with you where the gaps are and get you up to speed are really important. So I think those were sort of the big challenges. I had a lot of buy-in with leadership, so that wasn't an issue for me. Faculty. So I started a faculty innovation council. So every school is represented in helping us to build innovation for the university. And we created our commercialization process based on feedback from them and their schools. So the School of Liberal Arts had a say, the School of Law had a say, the School of Medicine had a say. So you do this in a very collaborative way. It reduces this unknown about innovation. And, hey, are you asking me to do something that's outside of I teach and I do research, I do publication. It made them a part of, the team. And I think that was super helpful.
Extremely inclusive. Yeah, that's really amazing. Kim, it's obvious that you're helping to foster a stronger innovation culture across campus. For those of our listeners who might be thinking of adding a chief innovation officer role to their university, what specific strategies do you recommend that they use to help build this type of environment?
Yeah, I sure do. Thanks for that question. I think the number one, if I was going to prioritize my strategies, I would say build trust and relationships is number one. Faculty really can question whether or not there's opportunity costs to participating in innovation efforts versus other things they could be doing with their time. So I think that's a really important element to developing developing innovation, but also reducing friction. A lot of times faculty, and they talk about administrative burdens. So understanding where they are and being able to be their partner in the development of innovation is really important. I'll give you a discrete example. We have a rock star researcher in our School of Medicine. We have lots of them, but this one particular just won a $300 million DoD contract. He's an associate dean of research. He has his own technology company start out. He's raising money. He's doing all the things. I'm like, wow. So how can we help to move your startup forward, right? So before I got on this call, I'm introducing him to the right people that we can identify an operator for his startup because he doesn't have the time to do it. So I'm not telling him he has to hire someone. I'm making him a part of the solution. This group will invest in startups like his. And so if you can build trust and relationships with your faculty, it goes a long way to adoption and getting people on board. I think that fostering interdisciplinary collaboration, I talked about the Faculty Innovation Council. But also when I have these meetings, I spend half the time letting others speak about what they're doing related to innovation. Because usually if they wanted to serve on a council, they've got ideas. And so that in itself creates interdisciplinary collaboration. We've hosted faculty mixers. They're 3-minute pitches on research. And then all of that discussion creates a ton of interconnectedness which has been fabulous for innovation and sparking disclosures, increase in disclosure rates. So I think that goes a long way to supporting faculty being on the front lines, getting students involved, and wanting to work with industry. Education and training. So I'm partnering with our faculty development group and doing a week-long training and paying faculty to get entrepreneurship and innovation training by an expert in entrepreneurship education and pedagogy. We'll give examples of how you do this across different disciplines. And I think all of that builds a wave of adoption and culture, and then your job gets easier. So I think that's really important. One thing we do really well at the Institute is communicate success stories from research. Like I have a faculty member, a national AFib cardiologist who's really interested in innovation, and he has a $7 million Samsung contract. And so we did a story on him, and now we hope that disclosures go up and things, and he loves that. And it makes people feel like they're a part of the conversation. So those are a few strategies that we have, and I can share more if people want to reach out, but it's really all about being a team, wearing the same hat, understanding where they're at, and then being able to, share with them some things that help them do their job better, and then celebrate that.
So, Glenn, what are your thoughts?
I'm coming from a much different side of the table as Kimberly, since I work with many different, I work with universities, I work with research hospitals, I work with independent research institutes. And the one thing that I've learned a lot more kind of in the past few years is how a hospital system views innovation compared to a university. And once again, that could be a whole white paper or case study in itself, but how they view innovation strategy, monetization, so the hospital system side is really, it's a lot different than a typical university. So that's the part that I've been learning, and I'm really trying to ramp up that side of the house. And the other thing that we're ramping up more is more of the venture development, the proof of concept funding, the venture development side, that those seem to be getting a lot more action than they were maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
And Glenn, I mean, you're obviously seeing a lot that's evolving in this space with respect to chief innovation officers. Where do you think this is all going? And do you think that chief innovation officers are going to start to take on even broader remits as universities continue to prioritize innovation? No,
I do. And they have to keep up. So I think it's just a function of keeping up, but it's a matter of this is what kind of universities need to do and how they structure it. And I think everyone's trying to ramp up the ladder. And I think that the bar is raised. And even places that don't have a formal chief innovation officer role, a lot of people are acting as that chief innovation officer and bringing these other things under this innovation umbrella. So I think this trend is not going to be a flash in the pan. I think this is here to stay, and it'll be interesting to see how things kind of come out in the next probably 2 to 5 years, I would say.
Absolutely. And as the podcast comes to a close, a question for both of you, and I'm going to start off with you, Glenn. You've recruited people, like you said, for over 20 years for many leadership roles in university innovation. What qualities do you think make someone ideal for this chief innovation officer role?
That's a tough one because it's such a diverse skill set.
Yes.
So if we were to look at you, and you're coming from a patent practitioner standpoint, that's a much different skill set that I'm just pulling Alice Lee, who runs tech transfer at Cornell. So you guys know a lot of the same stuff, but still come from different things. And then you pull the venture development, people in the play, and then you pull the industry collaborations people into play, and then you you bring the I-core people. So tech transfer by definition is very diverse, but this position is even more diverse. If you look to look at Kimberly's background, she didn't come out of the autumn. She came out of a marketing and MBA and business side. And so, this is another issue, and maybe Kimberly can touch on this, is, how do you come, and you do have a PhD, but how do you come from the non-deep science side? And really, I think this world needs to have more people from the business side, a la Kimberly, a la, Orrin Hershwitz that has a degree in like English or something. But how can these academic places get people with more diverse backgrounds in to lead this innovation ecosystem?
Yeah, Kimberly, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really appreciate some of the things that Glenn said. And I think that if I was there are really two things that I think about. The typical thing, visionary leader, you've got those kinds of really important elements in any major leadership role. But when you get down to it, when I'm like rolling up my sleeves, it is about change management expertise. It is about cultural transformation in complex organizations. And you're fostering entrepreneurial and innovative mindset. So when you come from a deep science perspective, it is a deep science perspective versus being able to understand the inner connectivity or inner workings of how this complex organization can move towards some set of outcomes that should be aligned for a community to drive opportunity for talent and all the things. When you think about how all these federal agencies are thinking about commercialization activities, and I'm seeing much more coming through NIH, NSF, and EDA about how we're supposed to work together. I think that's really important. I think there's a level of resilience and advocacy in terms of skills, right? Because you're representing different people who are their agendas may be different, right? And so helping people to understand and move the organization forward. So what we're really saying, and this is a lot of my research is in this, entrepreneurial ecosystem building, is universities have typically been known to do two things: educate talent and research. And what we need is the innovation pillar, so that these research and education and innovation are helping really make our world a better place. And without that innovation component, it's things tend to be a little ad hoc and not as organized or scalable. So while I think that all of the typical leadership and some of the technical skills are all required, a lot of those I think can be learned. I think this adaptive nature, right? And so you go back into history, it's really the ability to adapt. And so if we're changing people's mindsets about how we thought about education, you need someone that can really help to maneuver that and create connective tissue that helps people feel a part of something bigger than themselves. And I think that's what if I was going to narrow down why I'm pretty decent at what I do. Hopefully people say that about me, but I think it's that. I'm a really good listener. My dad used to say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? And so I just really love to learn about people. And when you really are present and you listen, you can really start to peel back the layers and understand what the drivers are and how they think about things. And when you're affecting change, I think that's a really important thing to think about. And sometimes we see a lot of people just trying to drive something and get a result, and it just academia doesn't work like that. And I think that's been my biggest North Star, is just to remember there are people on the other end of spending their lives developing the science and there are people that really need to benefit from it. And if I'm lucky enough to be in the middle of that catalyst and bring those worlds together, how awesome is that?
And that, I think, is an excellent way to end this podcast. And thank you so much, Kimberly and Glenn, for this really fascinating discussion on Chief Innovation Officers in University Innovation. This has really been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been so fun. Appreciate you.
Kimberly and Glenn, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's clear that the Chief Innovation Officer role is becoming essential for universities looking to maximize their innovation potential and contribute to economic growth. For those of you listening, as always, thank you so much for tuning in to Autumn on the Air. Stay connected with us for more discussions on how tech transfer is shaping the future of innovation.
Thanks for listening to Autumn on the Air with Lisa Mueller. Get social with us and share your thoughts. You can tweet us at AUTM or visit us online at autm.net. We'll be back next week on the air. Be sure to join us.